On the morning of my final court date to gain custody of my daughter, my neighbor slashed my tires so I couldn't leave. He watched from his porch, smirking. I called a tow, rushed across town, and made it just in time, winning the case. When I pressed charges against him for sabotage, his mugshot was plastered all over the evening news, and his boss fired him the next morning for conduct unbecoming. It started a year and a half ago, when my life was already falling apart. My name's Jake. I live in Springfield, Missouri, in one of those neighborhoods built in the 80s, small yards, aluminum siding, every house looking like a slight variation of the next. You can smell when someone's cooking hot dogs, and hear it when someone's fighting through a thin wall. After my divorce, I got the house in the settlement. Not because I fought hard for it, but because Tara didn't want it. She didn't want much of anything, not anymore. Drugs had taken over her world, and it wasn't long before she stopped showing up at school functions, or even bothering to pick up Maddie on her scheduled weekends. That's my daughter, Madison, but I call her Maddie. She's the reason I breathe. She's the only person in my life I haven't let down. When Tara went off the deep end, I had to do something. CPS had already opened a file after Maddie came home crying one weekend, saying she hadn't eaten in 2 days. Said there were people sleeping on the floor in her mom's apartment. I won't even say what else she told me. It was enough to make me throw up in my kitchen. I filed for full custody that Monday. That started the longest, ugliest chapter of my life. Meanwhile, Roy lived next door. We weren't friends. Never were. He was one of those old-school blowhards who thought he was a war general because he'd served in the Coast Guard 20 years ago. Always barking at kids on skateboards, reporting neighbors for leaving their trash cans out too long, or telling people what they should do with their lawns. When he found out I was divorced, he made comments. Maybe if you'd kept your wife satisfied, she wouldn't have run off. Your kid's gonna grow up screwed either way. Women aren't meant to be single mothers, and you sure as hell ain't cut out to be a full-time dad. Stuff like that. I ignored him at first. I had bigger battles to fight. I was juggling 2 jobs, one at the grocery store during the day, one stocking shelves overnight. I'd sleep in my car sometimes just to get a little rest between shifts. Every court date took a piece out of me. But I was making progress. CPS reports backed me up. School counselors testified. I kept every receipt, every note from teachers, every email. The judge started leaning my way. It all led up to one final hearing. That Sunday night, I was wired. Couldn't sleep. I laid out everything. Suit, shoes, court documents. I checked my car, made sure the tank was full. Even paid extra to have my tires rotated the week before. I wasn't taking any chances. The hearing was at 9 a.m. downtown. I set 2 alarms, one on my phone and one across the room so I'd have to get out of bed to shut it off. At 6:30, I stepped outside with my coffee, and I knew something was wrong. The car leaned funny. Too low. I walked around and saw the first tire. Shredded like someone had taken a hunting knife to it. The other 3 looked the same. Deep cuts. Ragged edges. I just stood there, holding my coffee, staring. And then I heard it, that dry smoker's chuckle. I turned. Roy was sitting on his porch. Bathrobe, coffee mug, big grin on his face. Looks like someone's got bad luck, he said, sipping slow. Hope it's not an important day or anything. I didn't say a word. I pulled out my phone and started filming. I panned across the tires, then aimed the camera right at him. He held up his middle finger like he was proud of it. I called the tow service and told them I'd pay double. Triple. I told them if they didn't come now, a little girl was going to lose her father. They got there in 22 minutes. The driver didn't ask questions. He just towed me in the car all the way across town, and dropped me outside the courthouse at 8:59. I sprinted in, shirt wrinkled, tie askew, heart pounding. But I made it. I walked into the courtroom breathless. My shirt was sticking to my back, my collar felt like a noose, and I could still smell the oil and rubber from the tow truck on my clothes. But I made it. Tara didn't. Her lawyer stood alone at the table, flipping through a thin folder with a defeated look. She hadn't shown up. Again. When the judge looked at me, he gave a slow nod. "Mr. Ramsey, you're here on time. Is your vehicle situation resolved?" I nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. Barely." He raised his eyebrows at the barely, but he didn't press. After that, the hearing was quick. Final custody awarded to me. Tara's parental rights suspended until further review. I got full legal and physical custody of Maddie. It was done. Outside the courthouse, I finally let myself breathe. I didn't cry right away, not until I got back in the car and just sat there. The silence hit me first, then the realization. I'd done it. All that pain. All that fear. The nights wondering if Maddie would be okay, if the courts would believe me, if I was doing enough, it was over. But the anger didn't go away. It just changed direction. That night, after Maddie was in bed, I went to my laptop and filed a police report. I uploaded everything. The photos, the video, even some screenshots of old messages Roy had sent through the neighborhood app, ones where he called me unfit and said things like, "A real father wouldn't need the courts to tell him how to raise a kid." I didn't expect much. Maybe a fine. Maybe a warning. But the officer I talked to took it seriously. He said what Roy did could count as criminal mischief, and since it was tied to a custody hearing, it might even be seen as obstructing justice. They opened a case. A detective came by the next day, looked at the video, then asked if I had anything else. I remembered the cameras on the garage, cheap ones I'd bought during a Black Friday sale. I hadn't even checked the footage yet. We pulled it up together. And there he was. Clear as day. 2:43 a.m. Roy, in a hoodie, crouching next to my car, slashing each tire with a long blade. The detective smiled. "That's all we need." They arrested Roy the next morning. The squad car pulled into his driveway just as he was leaving for work. He came outside yelling, robe open, still in his boxers. He tried to claim it was a mistake, that he didn't do anything. But they had the footage. And my statement. And motive. They cuffed him right there in his front yard. That night, his mugshot was all over the local news. But what happened next was better than anything I could have planned. Turns out, Roy worked for a big medical tech firm downtown. Corporate security. Real tight-lipped company with a strict code of conduct. His boss saw the news. The next day, Roy was fired. Not just let go, blacklisted. They cited conduct unbecoming and criminal behavior that jeopardizes company integrity. That's when the neighborhood really turned on him. The story should have ended there. Roy got arrested, lost his job, and became a neighborhood pariah. But like most bullies, he didn't take the loss quietly. A few days after his mugshot ran on the evening news, I started noticing things. At first, it was small. My trash cans tipped over in the morning. Maddie's bike knocked over in the yard. A few deep scratches on my driver's side door that hadn't been there the night before. I knew it was him. He hadn't been arrested long, just booked, processed, and released pending court. He was still in that house. Still sitting on that porch. But now, the smirk was gone. Replaced with something colder. Hateful. He didn't say anything anymore. Just stared. One afternoon, Maddie came home from school with her eyes wide. "Dad," she whispered. "Mr. Roy asked me if I missed my mom. He said I looked sad." That was it. I walked straight to his house. Banged on the door with my fist. He opened it slow, smirk already creeping back. "Problem? You talked to my daughter again, and I swear I'll make another call. I'm done with your games." He leaned in. "You think the police will help you again? You think anyone cares now that you got your little court win?" He was bluffing. Trying to rattle me. But it worked. I didn't sleep that night. A week later, someone broke into my shed. They didn't take anything, Just smash things up. Garden tools, the old radio, a few paint cans. Left a cigarette butt in the corner, still warm when I found it the next morning. I filed another report. The same officer came by. He looked tired. Hard to prove it's him, he said. No fingerprints. No footage. If you can catch him doing it, we can nail him. Otherwise, I was just another guy with a vengeful neighbor and no hard proof. That night, I bought better cameras. Motion sensors. Floodlights. I even asked an old buddy from high school, who works security at the local casino, to help me install a motion-activated dash cam inside my car. I was done waiting. 3 days later, at 2:18 a.m., the dash cam caught him. Roy walking up to my car with a rag and a bottle of brake fluid. The footage was shaky, but you could see him splashing it on the hood, the windshield, even the driver's side handle. Brake fluid strips paint like acid. And Roy knew it. I turned the footage over to the police the next morning. They didn't hesitate this time. They got a warrant. But I wanted more. I called Roy's former employer. Asked for HR. Told them the man they fired had started vandalizing my home. That he was escalating. That he was unhinged. They didn't say much, but I could tell they were listening. Later that week, I found out Roy had been rejected from 2 job interviews, both in town, both in security. One of them had called his old company for a reference. They didn't hold back. It all came crashing down for Roy one Thursday morning in early July. The cops came back to his house, this time with a full search warrant. They didn't just want to question him. They wanted to find what else he'd done. And they did. Inside his garage, they found a stash of tools, knives, wires, bottles of chemicals. Not illegal by themselves, but it was how they were labeled that did him in. On a shelf, he had boxes labeled Jake's Tires, Kid's Bike, and Paint Trick. Like some kind of sick trophy room. But that wasn't even the worst part. They found printed photos of Maddie. Taken from a distance. At school. In the yard. One of her walking home with her backpack, smiling like any normal 10-year-old. And he'd written on them. Weak point, leverage, he'll fold if she's at risk. That was enough. He was arrested that afternoon. This time, they didn't release him. I watched from my living room window as they led him out in cuffs. His face was blank. No smirk. No yelling. Just quiet. Like a man who knew it was finally over. But here's the part one haven't told anyone. The part one think about when I can't sleep. A week before all this, when things were getting really bad, I was ready to do something stupid. I had a bat in my hands one night. I was standing at the edge of his driveway, thinking about breaking his windows, maybe dragging him out by his collar, and showing him what it feels like to be afraid in your own home. But I didn't. I thought about Maddie, asleep inside. I thought about how I'd come this far, fought so hard, and how one dumb mistake could make me the villain. I'd seen too many dads lose everything because they couldn't hold it together. So I went back inside. Sat on the floor. Held my head in my hands. And I waited. I let the system work. And this time it did. Roy was charged with multiple counts: vandalism, harassment, stalking, and attempted intimidation related to a custody case. When the judge saw the photos of Maddie, bail was denied. He's sitting in county now, waiting for trial. His house is empty. Overgrown. The lawn looks like a jungle. A for sale sign went up last week, but no one's touched it. And me? I take Maddie to school every day. I sleep at night. I work one job instead of 2. I have peace. I think about what Roy tried to do. How he hated seeing someone like me win, a single dad, fighting against the odds. He wanted to see me break. But he broke first. He thought he could scare me. Trap me. Stop me from showing up for my daughter. Instead, he lost his job, his house, his freedom, everything. And I gained the one thing he never had. A reason to live for something more than hate.